Okay. Michelle, shall we start?
Yes, let's start.
Great.
Okay. Welcome everyone. Christine will give a little bit of logistical information before I introduce our three speakers for the first session.
Yeah, so quick overview because we don't want to cut into presentation time. As you know, the conference schedule is at ld42020.sched.com, and you can follow us on Twitter. And if you haven't joined Slack or haven't been auto-added to Slack, go ahead and join. I will put the link to these slides in the chat so that you can access all of these links easily. Oh, and I should mention that we have community participation guidelines, including contacts in case someone violates community participation guidelines, so that you can, the conference committee can follow up. So we're on the same Zoom link all day, so feel free to just leave it on or leave it, come and go as you see fit. If you have a question, we very much would like you to use the Q&A feature in Zoom. There should be a little button at the bottom of your Zoom window that lets you do that. You can use chat as well, but we're going to be looking at the Q&A window for questions that we want to feed to presenters. So this is an overview of the schedule. We are in the first session, there will be a break after that. That will be a very short break. And then after the second session, there will be a somewhat longer break. Feel free, again, to come and go as you please. And I hope everybody's, well set up for lunch or dinner or whatever kind of snacks they need to get through this, this kind of dense set of sessions. Thanks so much for coming. We really, really appreciate everyone who's joining us from many different places and many different time zones in particular. We've been really, really impressed with the people who've joined, at midnight from their beds, at the crack of dawn. It's really, really gratifying, and it's great to have you all here. If there's one silver lining to having to do this conference online, it's that we've been able to broaden participation and to hear voices that we wouldn't have heard in an in-person conference in Texas. So thanks for coming. So I'm going to hand it off to Michelle now.
Thanks, Christine. So we have our first session in this track on linked data at the ISSN International Center. And we have three speakers. Deanna White is a Canadian librarian who has been in France for nearly 2 decades. Deanna White has worked as a reference librarian, a rare prints cataloger, a systems librarian, and a knowledge manager in a variety of libraries in academic and international organization settings. She's now the ISSN project officer, chair of the ISSN review group, and ISSN liaison for several IFLA committees. Pierre Godefroy is head of the Information Systems Department at the ISSN International Center. He's interested by all possible links between periodicals and between periodicals and their environment. Third speaker, Thomas Francart, is founder of the consulting company Sparna. He's the expert behind the ISSN linked data profile. Thomas is a senior freelance semantic web consultant. He works with large public institutions such as ISSN-IC, the Office of Publications of the European Union, and the French National Archives. So welcome for our three speakers, and thank you.
Okay, so I've shared my screen. Hopefully everyone can see it.
Yes.
Bonjour à tous. Thank you to the organizers of the LD4 conference for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I will cover how we use linked data at the ISSN International Center here in Paris, France. And if we have some time at the end, we can answer some questions. I've got a couple of our technical experts here to assist me in case you have some particularly tough questions. So thank you to Pierre and Thomas for your time today as well. There we go. So I don't know if it's the long-lasting effects of an undergraduate degree in French literature or my time spent cataloging historic prints for the Napoleon collection at McGill University, my alma mater, but I think the national motto of France is particularly suited to the world of linked data. Liberté, freedom, égalité, equality, et fraternité, fraternity, or brotherhood, or as I like to say, buddies. All offer touchstones to what is essentially an information revolution that started peacefully in 1990 when Tim Berners-Lee started talking about a World Wide Web. Hopefully in this revolution, we can avoid a modern day Robespierre and his reign of terror, although I know some of you have no doubt experienced a certain dread the first time you laid eyes on structured data. I still get a chill looking at some ontologies, which I shall not name. Anyway, I digress. Today I will cover a bit of background about the ISSN International Center. To give you a bit of context, I'll show you how the ISSN portal displays free data. We will look at the ISSN data model and its equivalencies in several ontologies. And finally, we'll examine some of our projects that involve some linked data buddies out there on the semantic web. The slide deck is already on Sketch, and we'll also put it on the ISSN SlideShare page, and you should have some links already on Slack. I won't go into detail about the definition of continuing resources and the debate surrounding how to build a conceptual model, but suffice it to say all of these types of continuing resources are eligible to receive an international standard serial number for a unique identifier. The non-static nature of this mode of publishing presents unique challenges to metadata collection, notably in changes of title, frequency, and publisher. But continuing resources have also have standard challenges common to any kind of publication, like disambiguation, and especially for online mediums, access and preservation. The ISSN International Center was established as an intergovernmental organization within the framework of UNESCO UNISYS program to be the designated authority for controlling the assignment of ISSN back in the early 1970s. Funded by UNESCO, its host state, France, and soon to be 91 member states, the ISSN International Center fulfills the need for a brief, unique, and unambiguous identification code for serials and other continuing resources. The ISSNs are widely used by actors in the continuous resource production chain for resource creation, distribution, and subscriptions. It is also the key identifier in databases for the exchange of bibliographic data. The growing number of online continuing resources also make the ISSN well placed as an identifier on the semantic web. To give you an idea of the growth of online publishing, there are now approximately 128,000 continuing resources with an ISSN that are available only in an online medium. This is not counting the number of publications which have both an online and print editions. To give you a bit more background about the ISSN processes, first, it is important to note communication between all of these different players transcends national boundaries and therefore requires an international identifier which is numeric, since no single alphabet is used by the majority of producers and users of serials. Resources identified by ISSN are in 312 different languages, and metadata describing them can be in any of 20 scripts. The ISSN is unique. It is assigned to a resource in a particular medium. It is opaque, it cannot be parsed for meaning, and it is persistent because it is not reassigned. Each ISSN is associated with identification metadata, the ISSN record, and it is referenced in a specialized database, the ISSN register. However, ISSN attribution is decentralized. ISSNs are allocated by national centers for publications from their respective countries. The International Center allocates ISSNs for countries where there is no national center. The International Center is also responsible for maintaining the portal, which is the access point to ISSN register metadata. The International Center normalizes and enriches the metadata it receives from the national centers, and it is also the registration authority for the ISO, or so many S's, ISO 3297 standard. In total, the portal offers nearly 2.4 million bibliographic records, 2.1 of which are confirmed records. These records have a lot of links between them. We make links between all of the local editions and national edition, between the different mediums, and between the different title changes. The final draft ballot for the 6th edition of the ISO 3297 standard closes soon, August 21st. A couple of notable additions to the text and context of linked data. First, it responds to sector demand for the ability to group and identify related continuing resources using new types of clusters. We currently have one cluster type of ISSN, which we call the ISSN-L, which means ISSN linked, which identifies related publications by their format. And ISSNs are, of course, supposed to be used as URIs, so they are available as cool URIs on the ISSN portal and are persistently resolvable via a URN, an IETF standard. Furthermore, the standard specifies richer data elements to allow the communication of additional characteristics of a resource. There are examples in the standard of schema, Dublin core, and modes in the document. And I'm saying modes, but I'm actually not sure if you say MODS or modes, so I'm just going to say modes. The introduction of this version of the ISSN portal in late 2018 served as a pathway to adopt a so-called freemium model. The ISSN portal allows you to search for records from the ISSN registry, and the concept of the freemium model, as shown by the free access logo on the top right of your screen, gives a minimum view of all registry records. I should also point out that the globe icon next to the free logo allows users to switch the portal interface language to one of the other 5 UN languages. We have French, Spanish, Russian, Chinese, and Arabic as well. The portal is the access point to the extranet as well, which allows publishers managed by us to ask for ISSN assignments for the new titles. A bit more about our freemium model and open data policy. The objective is that the ISSN play its role as a reference identifier, not only in publishing, distribution, and library worlds, but also in the web of data. What is considered to be essential identifying data has been released for each resource: the ISSN, the ISSN-L, the key title and the title proper, country and medium, as well as the URLs that are typically found in the 856 mark tags. This minimum record is associated to a persistent URL following the pattern shown on the screen, which also allows the resource to be cited in datasets, and the URL is actionable. The attribution non-commercial share-alike license was adopted for this data, but given our current project with Wikidata, this will be changed to a Creative Commons 0 license. On the other hand, certain data remain proprietary. Other bibliographic data, such as publisher, dates, and subjects, and data from resources awaiting publication, are reserved for portal subscribers. When the publication described in the register is open access, we have released the full record. It would be nonsensical otherwise. So here is how the data looks in the portal. First is the free record showing the released metadata. And for comparison, this is the same record that's accessible to portal subscribers. So not only are we looking at exposing our own data on the semantic web, but we have been using third-party linked open data to enrich our own database. GeoNames data have been integrated to provide resource geolocation. The interactive map that you saw on the opening page, the landing page of the portal, is generated by GeoNames data incorporated into our records. In order to have a common subject index in the registry, we use the data from the UDC summary, the linked open data version of the Universal Decimal Classification. And as of July 2020, we have 28,701 ISSN records that have ISNIs, the International Standard Name Identifier. As part of our 2024 strategy, we want to retrieve ISNIs more systematically for corporate corporate contributors thanks to SRU API. We will also investigate if we can assign ISNIs to newly identified corporate contributors or possibly to publishers and brands in compliance with international initiatives in this area. The services we offer, especially the API, are used by our subscribers to enrich their own bibliographic database or for data cleaning, checking titles, correcting invalid ISSNs, etc. Lastly, we've embarked on projects to align with existing reference systems. We can request linked data from databases of partner national libraries to retrieve the ISNI, which we are particularly interested in for the issuing body field. The national libraries themselves can integrate ISSN URIs into their database. This is what the National Library of Finland has done, for example. We also started a project with Wikidata to link their resource IDs with the portal, both to enrich Wikidata and to enrich the portal, which I will describe in a bit more detail at the end of the presentation. Finally, this is just the beginning of the linked data revolution for us. The possibilities for projects are endless, so we welcome your suggestions. And here's an example of an ISSN record for an updating website showing some of the data elements I just described. We have the GeoNames map showing the publisher's location in Dakar, Senegal, and there is also the UDC subjects. And the corporate contributors ISNI, clicking on the hyperlink text sort of within the main screen of the record will initiate a new search. The links section on the left is where you can click on the ISNI URL to navigate to ISNI's record for the name, for all the name variants. To start these linked data services, in 2017, we started work with Thomas Francart to map all of our data into RDF. ISSN register data are recorded in the MARC 21 format, though we receive it in Unimarc and even in simple Excel spreadsheets from some of our national centers. When creating our own application profile, we had several requirements. It had to be consistent with the IFLA library reference model. It had to be expressive in order to capture the richness of the data available in MARC. And finally, in a seemingly contradictory objective, it had to be simple to understand, and this to allow us to encourage the reuse of the data. In order to square this circle, we decided to combine different ontologies. We chose to use schema.org as a basic model so that the portal's data can be used by search engines. If a property didn't exist in schema.org, the precedence rule stipulates that a Dublin core property be used, and then, of course, for specialized bibliographic properties, we use BIBFRAME, and then MARC 21 RDF vocabulary, and also some Prov.O ontology terms. In rare cases, when we were working on ISSN-specific properties, we created our own controlled vocabulary. The ISSN value itself is expressed multiple times for maximum dissemination in schema:(ISSN, bibo:(ISSN, and DC:(identifier). The application profile is actually available online. I posted a link to it on Slack, and you can see it on the screen as well. Here is one of the data graphs showing the ISSN, its record, and its identifiers. We can see that at the heart of the model is the continuing resource, shown in the node colored in rose. Contrary to what most libraries do, our reference URL is the resource, not the record, because the ISSN is intended to be the main URI to identify the resource itself. The URIs are in bold text with relative URIs starting with a hashtag, and the variable part of the URI appears in curly brackets. That would be where the specific ISSN would appear. Then next to the URI, the class is written in regular text, and as you can see, sometimes there are multiple classes. In particular, the ISSN resource is typed as schema:(periodical in schema.org, bf:(work, and bf:(instance in BibFrame. You can read the reasons for this choice in the application profile document. The ISSN resource is linked to a record and to 4 identifiers, the ISSN-L, the ISSN, the key title, and the abbreviated key title, all these being unique. The role of the national centers who create the record and assign the identifiers is also highlighted in the bottom part of this graph. The cluster ISSN, here the ISSN L, is connected to the ISSN resource through the object property schema is part of and has part. So after the work on the linked data application profile was completed, it was able to be incorporated into the ISSN portal. To return to an example, in order to see the linked data, you use the tool menu on the right of the screen, click on the display linked data button. Oops, and here I go. I knew I was going to do this. There you go. Let's try this again. So when you click on the button, you see a menu that presents the choice of how you want to expose the data. You have the choice between RDF, XML, JSON, linked data, or in Turtle. And here the example is in RDF XML. Serial resources are volatile, digital serials even more so. One of our greatest challenges is, and I'm sure this is true for everyone, is updating the ISSN record with metadata when there are URL updates. The URLs can resolve to the serial resource metadata, or they can resolve to the digital resource itself. Since 2001, the ISSN is supported within the Uniform Resource Name, the EARN framework, as a specific EARN namespace identifier. EARNs can be used not only as internet identifiers, but also as actionable pointers, allowing machines or humans to retrieve the identified resources or relevant metadata describing them through a resolution mechanism. The ISSN International Center provides such a resolver. The syntax to be used to retrieve the metadata corresponding to the ISSN through the resolver is shown on the screen, where the X's represent the actual ISSN number. It is recommended to record the EARN :ISSN in the embedded metadata for the resource made available on the web. For example, in an HTML document, the metadata information should be entered in the head section as shown here. It is strongly recommended as well to publishers that they use the ISSN number as part of their title level DOI to offer a persistent and resolvable link to their journal. A title level DOI should resolve to the response page that displays the same title and ISSN recorded in the ISSN registry. As part of our 2024 strategy, we're exploring how we can incorporate more persistent identifiers into metadata and workflows, including offering DOIs or ARCs, archival resource keys, to publishers as the ISSN attribution state, at the attribution stage. ARCs have been adopted by many of the host organizations of our national centers, but many of our partners use DOIs. So this is to be explored. In addition to the work we do in collecting persistent identifiers to facilitate access to continuing resources, we added the Keepers Registry to our portfolio of services in December 2009, or 2019 rather, only 7 months ago. The Keepers Registry is now accessible through the ISSN portal and provides digital holdings information from over a dozen archiving agencies around the globe on, at the moment, 45,326 titles. Still in development as a service, we are looking at a process to link users to the serial title or information about the title on the publisher's platform, the aggregator's platform, the archiving agency's platform, or the library catalog. The question is, how do we set up actionable identifiers for several URLs in an appropriate order? How shall we determine which URL is the most persistent of the persistent? The acquisition of the Keepers Registry is also presents a challenge for how to incorporate holdings information in our linked data. We are currently working with Thomas Francart on updating our linked data application profile for this. The PRESS-OO conceptual model will have to be updated and reviewed before it can serve as a guide in our application profile, but hopefully soon. Just to show you quickly how you can access the Keepers Register, you can navigate to the Keepers Registry on the top bar, which will automatically limit the search to the subset of ISSN records which have archival status information. Alternatively, you can search in the complete portal and then use the faceting to see records which have the keepers information that's marked by a K icon, like the one you see at the top there. Here I'm just going to show you a sample going back to one of the samples earlier, La Liberté, to show you where you can see the archival status information by using the toggle tab, and then clicking on the eyeball icon to see the actual list of issues that have been preserved or archived. For the moment, this is the view. We hope to have to run some usability testing and improve the functionality and display with the help of the Keepers Technical Advisory Committee in the next year or two. And again, very soon we should be able to express the data in JSON, XML, and Turtle. Another linked data project we're working on with a partner is the Wiki project periodicals. Free ISSN data will be shared on Wikidata. The ISSN International Center will push the metadata for serials that already have an ISSN in Wikidata. There's much interest from the Wikidata community and ongoing debate about adding other metadata beyond the 8 listed on the screen. As of July 2020, there are 176,000 items that have an ISSN so far. Pierre? Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Please.
Okay, my video camera is going strangely, so I started it in my, okay. So hopefully you can still see my screen. I was saying about Wikidata. So we're far from having all items, not nearly 2.1 million ISSNs yet in Wikidata, maybe soon. It's part of our strategy to share serial open data as broadly as possible and to be an active participant in the expert communities, such as those in Wikimedia Foundation's wikis. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see me now, but here is the data model for the Wikidata item for serial publication. Technical issues here. This will give you a bit of time to have a close look at the chart on your screen. One challenge was how to treat the place of publication coded P291, as the ISSN International Center only releases the country metadata rather than the city of publication. The URLs, let's see. The URLs coded in 856 tags in the ISSN records may not necessarily be the most up-to-date compared to what may be found on the Wikidata page. So to ease reconciliation process, we will only upload data on entries that have an ISSN filled in Wikidata with ISSN P236, and we will not try to reconcile based on publication title to avoid creating duplicates if the match on the title doesn't work. We also didn't want to upload all of our free records and end up creating tons of very small entities in Wikidata. The full disclosure about how the model is set up can be found by following the link that you see on the bottom or on the side of the slide. This upload will be done by an automated bot coded in Java to allow regular updates from the ISSN register. The Java code for the ISSN bot can be found on GitHub or GitHub. The bot will preserve existing values and add qualifiers and references to them when they are the same as the ISSN register. So if a different value for official website, the P856 or the place of publication P291 exists in Wikidata, it will be preserved and new values with references to the ISSN register will be addressed or will be added. The ISSN will only upload current ISSNs on serial entities, not ISSNs corresponding to ceased publications. Since the start end date for these is not part of the free released ISSN data. If the value of the official website or the place of publication changes over time, the old value will be preserved and set to deprecated rank. So here you see a sample of Charlie Hebdo. Where you can see that the ISSN bot has added in a reference. So I will stop here to leave a bit of time for questions. I hope that you have found this overview of our linked data activities at the ISSN International Center of Interest. Should you want to know more, please ask a question.
Thank you, Deanna.
I think my battery of my camera has is slowly dying, so I'm not sure if you can see me, but you can hear me in any case.
Yes, we do hear you. We don't see you, but there's a great multi-part question in the Q&A panel that I'll read off to you. Are catalogers duplicating the work of ISSN by creating records for continuing resources already described by ISSN? Can libraries request that resources are added to ISSN or only the publisher? And then lastly, what do presenter and attendees think of a model where libraries would state only that what items they hold and the rest described by ISSN? And that last question, I would recommend maybe a robust dialogue on Slack. Deanna, did you, or
well, I can answer quickly, and Pierre also wants to answer. Basically, there's not duplication normally, but if catalogers are doing from scratch the records, that then yeah, they could download the records, at least part of the records, and if there are subscribers, then yes, they could easily get the full complete record, and it's updated regularly. So this is why our API service is very useful for subscribers, because they can have continuous updates. Libraries, if they're subscribers or library catalog experts, if they have a subscription, can also request changes. We have a change request system in place. So depending on where the item or the record is, who owns it, which national center, the request is sent to the national center, who then updates the record or doesn't, depending on if they agree with the proposed change. And well, the final question is one open for debate, I think.
And also there's another question about the, does the record contain subject headings, genre, form, etc.?
Okay, so yeah, so.
Oh, we may have lost Deanna. Is there another of the team who can address the last question of the ISSN records containing subject headings, genre, form, or other details? Oh, here she comes.
Hey, we're doing tag team computers here.
Very creative.
So yes, so Adam's question, yes, we don't do all kinds of subject headings, and the genre form, I don't think we generally don't keep those tags when we receive them from the National Center in the US, for example. They may have some records that are cataloged with more metadata that we do extract.
And then briefly, we're at time for this session, but there's one quick question in the chat. Have you contributed or considered contributing any of your schema extensions to schema.org?
I think Thomas can answer that question, but I think he has actually.
We proposed a couple of modifications to schema.org while we were working on the application profile, yes. You can find a precise reference in the profile application document. You have links to the schema.org issues about what we did.
And there's one other technical question that is in the Q&A, and I wonder if Thomas might want to just answer that one right in the Q&A of our webinar session, since we are at time. I would like to move us along to Joseph Hafner's lightning talk on IFLA standards as linked data. But before I do that, thank you very much, Deanna and Thomas and Pierre. And if there's a little time at the end of the session overall, we can go back to some discussion of your content as well.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, so Joseph Hafner is the chair of the IFLA Liberté and member of the IFLA Committee on Standards. The Associate Dean for Collection Services at the McGill University Library, is active in HathiTrust on the Program Steering Committee and with the International Association of Music Libraries. Joseph, take it away.
Okay. So you can see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Great. And so thanks for having me today. I'm presenting from Montreal. I'm at McGill University, and I'm presenting on the IFLA standards as linked data, the IFLA namespaces in preview. So the IFLA Standards Committee on Standards decided about 6 years ago to start working on a plan to have the standards of IFLA exposed as linked data. And they created the committee that I'm on, the Linked Data Technical Subcommittee, which I'm currently chairing. They did that in about 2015, I think. And so we've been working on this a while. So it's exciting that it's finally moving ahead. And the committee is supporting the linked data and namespace activities of IFLA professional units by assisting in the publishing of standards and providing training and support to these activities. This is more about our responsibilities as a group. But what we did was last year, at the annual conference in Athens, we approved a contract to work with Metadata Management Associates. They seem to be the best group to help us move this project forward. They had a lot of experience with RDA and other standards. And we're really pleased that we're now launching the website. We have a soft launch this July, and this is one of our first PR times to talk about that website. So I'm glad that we can do that today. The address of the site is iflastandards.info. We have the various standards that are listed here. I'm going to go through them a bit. When you look at the FRBR vocabularies, you can see we have the various models there, FRAD, FRBR, FRBROO, etc. We also have the ISBD vocabularies, and there's the various options that we have listed. We have the library reference model, and I'm going to go deeper into this just to show you what we do on the website. So if you link into the LMR-ER model, you can see that we have the options to look at the data as triples, as RDF, XML, as JSON. You can also see that we have more information at the bottom about the various options. If you open it up in JSON, you can see that there. You can also go deeper into the different classes index. You can look at place, for example, and then once you're in place, you can also look at that as RDF, or you could look at that as triples and expose the data that way. We also have the Unimark vocabularies and the various options there. And lastly, we have Multicap. So with this soft launch, we're getting feedback from the various people who worked on the standards to make sure that we're doing it the way that makes sense. We're reviewing them on our IFLA Committee on Standards, which this year we're meeting virtually throughout the summer, just to move the projects ahead, since there is no IFLA Congress in person this year. We're trying to see, are there other standards that we want to include, and is there other information that we should be adding to it to make these more useful to the greater community. And we're going to work on a PR plan for the site. How do we share the information and move forward there? And we're also doing some training of our own committee just to make sure we know how to update the information and keep it current as things are updated and changed. So it's a quick overview. Just a lightning talk today on the namespaces, but it's just an opportunity to share this website with you. Take a look, let us know if you have any feedback. I'm happy to answer any questions if there's any today, but you can also reach out to me at joseph.hafner@mcgill.ca, and I'm happy to have a dialogue with you about anything on the website. So that's my short lightning talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Checking quickly in the Q&A. I don't see any questions at the moment, but we will be keeping the Q&A panel open across the three different sessions of this segment of the conference. So I suggest we move to Paul's session on ID.LOC.GOV, but if there are questions for Joseph, after Paul's done, we'll answer questions on Joseph's content as well. Thank you very much. So to introduce Paul, who for many needs no introduction, Paul Frank is a policy specialist in the Policy Training and Cooperative Programs Division at the Library of Congress. He represents the NACO and SACO programs as part of the PCC Secretariat and has been at the Library of Congress since July 1993, working as a cataloger of Slavic and Hungarian resources and music resources. Paul joined the PCC Secretariat in 2004. Paul, I will turn it to you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. How's the sound? Is it okay? It's not the best probably, but you're hearing okay?
Yes, hearing.
Okay, yeah. I want to apologize to everyone that I don't have a video, but if you're attending the 2 p.m. session, you'll see me standing in the Neptune fountain at the Library of Congress. It might be worth the wait for that. I'm working from a little bit of limited bandwidth, so when I was thinking about it this morning, I thought, wow, this is really ironic because I'm talking about a Lamborghini right now, but I'm actually driving an AMC Gremlin down the highway while I'm talking about a Lamborghini because I've got limited resources here, but ID.LOC.GOV is a powerhouse, and I'm very, very excited to talk about some of the things that we have in ID.LOC.GOV. I realize now this is probably turning into a lightning talk, but I wanted to cover these 7 points. I'll have separate slides on each one, but this is really the overview of my presentation. I have to admit a little bit of ignorance. So I'm a traditional authorities cataloger and have been for quite a long time. So back in 2009, I heard at the Library of Congress that we have a new data service for authorities, and specifically this was for LCSH, Library of Congress subject headings. So I thought, wow, that's really interesting. I better talk about this to the community. So we have, twice a year ALA meetings, PCC is represented there, and for the SACO, the Subject Authority Cooperative meeting at ALA, I thought, well, let me ask Kevin Ford at the Library of Congress to discuss what he's done. He was the person behind this, getting LCSH into this authorities and vocabulary site. So I didn't know much about it, but I have to say the only thing that I thought was, here's one more source of LCSH. I mean, as a typical authorities librarian, I'm worried about how many master files or separate files of this one vocabulary that we have, because maintenance is always an issue. So I really didn't, I had a lot of ignorance about this. I didn't really understand what it was. I hadn't really thought about linked data at all. But when Kevin gave his talk, all of this came together. This is a powerful source of linked data for these traditional authority vocabularies that we all know about. But back in 2010, actually 2009 is when it first started, there was LCSH and 5 other vocabularies, pretty meager, but it was just starting out. And I want to also point out, by the way, that this site was not even called ID.LOC.GOV at this time. That's what most of us know it as now, but back then it was just called authorities and vocabularies. So now we go to today, 2020, and we have over 100 vocabularies in this linked data service. ID.LOC.GOV is our Library of Congress linked data service, available for everyone in the world to use. It's grown considerably, and one of the most important additions recently has been the BIBFRAME works and instances that are generated from our catalogers at the Library of Congress who are participating in the BIBFRAME pilot. All of the work that they do is available now in ID.LOC.GOV. So at the end of my presentation, I want to talk a little bit about how ID.LOC.GOV is now turning into a prototype of a discovery layer. Traditionally, it was used just for accessing authority data and control vocabularies, but it's grown quite a bit. On the average, in 2020, we get 500,000 to 800,000 hits daily on the site. That's a lot. That's a very, very strong hit rate. We have individual users, we have crawlers, and we have programs. For example, most of you know MarcEdit. All of these are hitting on ID.LOC.GOV every day. So this has to be a very stable platform, enable for these hits to be successfully resolved and data to be returned. I asked my colleagues in the Network Development and MARC Standards Office for some more specific statistics, and just from last week on the 15th of July, and this is not all. I just took the high 7 and ranked them in the hit order just for you to get an idea. The NACO, name authorities, gets the biggest hit, close to 170, but then it goes down the list. Subject still is quite a big hit, but I'm very happy to see that BIBFRAME resources and works are way up there in the top 7 now, and this is really something for just having added these resources relatively recently to the linked data service. So you can imagine the type of transactions that are being hit on ID.LOC.GOV every day, and it's a very stable platform, rarely has any performance issues. But this is in its traditional intended use as a linked data service. One of the biggest hits on ID is our BIBFRAME pilot participants. So I just put 2 slides here from our linked data editor, the BIBFRAME editor, searching for a name authority and searching for a form genre for a work, or you might be more familiar with places from the name authority file or LCSH, a combined search to find place names in one of those files, or typical LCSH headings and subdivisions. All of these are being, ID.LOC.GOV is the source of this information for BIBFRAME pilot participants. They're not going to the traditional MARC authority files. So from that preliminary, 6 vocabularies in 2010, we have over 100, but more than 40 of the vocabularies that are in ID.LOC.GOV right now are being accessed by BIBFRAME pilot participants. This is an incredible thing here, because when you think about a MARC record, all the data that's in MARC, how can you make that linked data friendly? Well, it has been made linked data friendly in ID.LOC.GOV with all of these cataloging sources that you see down the middle column there. In addition, all of the authorities sources that we traditionally use in cataloging. So there's quite a bit of data coming right out of ID.LOC.GOV into our BIBFRAME descriptions. I want to talk now about this changing view of ID.LOC.GOV as being something really just that machines would access and machines would harvest and download data, to turning into something that's more of a discovery layer. Now, my colleague in the Network Development Office, Matt Miller, I think a lot of you know him. He's an amazing guy. One thing that he says is one of the goals of linked data is to make sure you link out to others' data. Well, I mean, Matt's a smart man, but I don't think he actually coined this phrase, but it certainly is something that anyone working with linked data keeps in mind, the value of linking out. So in ID.LOC.GOV, Matt has worked on linking to Wikidata from ID.LOC.GOV, but then also there are two other, for just this one name authority here, we have, or three actually, one link out to VIAF, the Virtual International Authority file, and then one to Getty Thesaurus, and then one to the fast headings in OCLC. So here's an example of what I call a hublet. You know, we talk about hubs and spokes when we talk about linked data. In this sense, ID.LOC.GOV is a little tiny hub. And I call it a hublet because if you actually go to Wikidata for this same entity, for Serge Diaghilev, you're going to have 66 links out. So this is a major, this is like a tractor hub right here. This is not a little car hub. This is a huge hub. Wikidata really over the past year especially has proven itself to be a valid hub for identifiers, and more people are linking to Wikidata. And Matt is one of the people here at LC who is working on making links between the name authority file and Wikidata to sort of fulfill that linked data task of linking out. What Matt started with in early 2019 were 650,000 NACO IDs in Wikidata, but in 2020, he added 400,000 more. This was in a bulk process. And in addition to NACO, we have 35,000 LCSH heading links as well in Wikidata. So at the Library of Congress, we're taking this very seriously about making our linked data truly linked data by linking out to sources that are recognized reconciliation services or hubs. And it's a great opportunity now to put in a plug for the PCC Wikidata pilot. Any one of you in the PCC, and even if you're not in PCC, you may have heard about this, we're starting a Wikidata pilot. I highly encourage you to express an interest in being involved in this, because this will take our community further into linked data. Wikidata is an open community. Any of you who are in NACO, think about this contrast. You know what NACO involves: weeks of training and review and authorizations and money to be a member of a utility and money to get the documentation. Wikidata is much more open, community-based, and the barrier to entry in Wikidata and Wikipedia is very low. And this is going to be a great pilot for our PCC community to experiment more with Wikidata. So a NACO ID in Wikidata is also reflected in ID.LOC.GOV. Now think about this: if you're a NACO member, that Wikidata ID might not be in the MARC record, but it's going to be in the ID, a linked data version of the record. So in many ways, our linked data version of the authority file has more data than our MARC-based data. So we're a little bit out of sync, but in a positive way. I'm keeping an eye. I'm really talking as fast as I can. I'm almost done. But in many ways, this is the most exciting part. So what Matt did as part of an experiment with Wikidata and ID is ID.LOC.GOV is take a large collection here at the Library of Congress of photographs, 66,000 from our Prints and Photographs division, and he linked those with Wikidata information, biographical metadata about those pictures and the agents involved with those pictures. That created a very powerful discovery layer by using the Wikidata information, integrating it with LC collections. You can find out more about this on Matt's blog about the project. It's on our LC blog site. It came out I think it was last May, about about a year ago, maybe a little bit more recent than that. I can't remember the exact date of it, but it's a fascinating project. You can download information from GitHub to try this out yourself. It's all there. Now, what I envision moving towards this concept of a discovery layer in ID is why not take our BIB frameworks and instances that are in ID now, you saw them in ID at the top of the list, integrate that information with Wikidata, and let's see what kind of discovery layer we can have, a hybrid discovery layer that harnesses the power of both the linked data from ID and the just exhaustive information and links out from Wikidata. So that's a possibility, that's a future wish, but there's something that even now you can do in ID.LOC.GOV that mimics this discovery layer, and that's the use of facets that are in the tool right now. So I used as an example linked data. I'm doing a general search at the high level of ID on linked data to see what I get. Well, the first thing that comes back are going to be the BIB frameworks and instances. Those are ranked highest, they're our first result. But within that result list, down the left-hand side, you have facets that you can check to further narrow your search, to find out more, to come in. Here's at the scheme level, you have the summary of the data that's been provided. So this is not just a flat result screen. This is a result screen that you can further modify through faceting of the data. You can even go down to the type of resource that you have. And then narrow down to the authority aspects of the data as well. But also, I want to point out something that when you click on a work, BIB framework, and you through ID.LOC.GOV, all of the links are there. Now, on this screen, it might not be too surprising because you see actionable links to the 2 contributors and actionable links to the subject authorities for which we have authorized headings already established, so that the link can be there and the language. But I want to point out on this page, the discovery with links that you might not be aware of. Look at illustrations. Illustrations is hyperlinked. Bibliographies is hyperlinked. Index present is hyperlinked. Includes bibliographical references and index is highlighted. These are links. This is because all of the data that we traditionally would put in the MARC 008 area in the fixed fields there, that's all supported by controlled vocabularies, and those are reflected now in ID.LOC.GOV. You can't do anything with them in a MARC record, but once that MARC record is converted to BIBFRAME, or a BIBFRAME pilot participant creates a description for it, it's totally actionable. So this is linked data really in action right now in ID.LOC.GOV. So you might argue with me and say, well, my OPAC can do that now. You know, it can take a MARC record and we can hyperlink the headings or the access points. Well, yeah, I could say you could, but I would also say that by taking that MARC record and converting it to BIBFRAME, you're just in multi-folds, you're increasing the amount of linked data capability of that record through using those controlled vocabularies that are already in ID.LOC.GOV. So, in fact, many of the resources, especially towards the end of this presentation that I showed you on the screen, were not native BibFrame. They were MARC records that were converted to BibFrame, and those links were made actionable at that time. So I'm going to close by saying linked data compatibility inherently can create a basic discovery layer, as you can see right now in ID.LOC.GOV, but take that Wikidata layer and put it on top. And I think the possibilities are infinite for the type of discovery layer that you might be able to create from ID.LOC.GOV. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Christine, for letting me talk about this.
Thank you, Paul. We actually do have one question in the Q&A. Are folks at LC yet working on beta BibFrame authorities editor yet, even for internal use?
That's one of our big goals for the next phase of our BibFrame pilot, is to have a prototype of authority creation within BibFrame. And I'm speaking totally personally now, and this is something that I've always felt would be a wonderful thing to do, but often I have great ideas and technology people can dissuade me from those because of technical reasons. But I would love to see a BibFrame authority record created that would load directly to ID.LOC.GOV, bypassing the MARC process that we have in place. That might be something down the road, but there certainly is that possibility as we move forward with BibFrame exploration here at the library.
Thanks so much, Paul. And thanks to our other presenters also. We are at the end of time for this session. We have a short break built in before this track continues at 12:15. So I hope you all have a little time to refresh and then join us again at 12:15 when we restart with another slate of fabulous presentations. Thanks all to the attendees as well. See you shortly.